One other thing I wanted to talk about was the different chassis available for the car. Um, you can see this car has obviously a graphite lower plate. This is the regular black edition lower plate, the graphite. And on it right now is the split upper deck, which I talked about before. This is the standard fiberglass plate, which I think is just about as stiff as the graphite, to be honest with you. It's not like a regular fiberglass. It's more like some kind of, I don't know if it's a resin composite or something like that. But it's not graphite, but it's also not regular fiberglass, which is a lot more flex. This is, and again, this is the fiberglass, or whatever you want to call it, upper deck, which is fairly close to the graphite upper deck. The graphite upper deck's a little bit thinner. I don't know which one really. This one might be a little bit more flexible. The nice part about it is it's easier to get whatchamacall, the bullet type batteries in this one. These areas let you punch the bullets right in the back of this thing, where this is a lot harder to get bullet battery packs in. You wind up needing like a Dean's connector type pack, or it makes it easier to use a Dean's connector pack. Whereas this is, you can put this on there and the bullets go right in there. Same thing with this one, the bullets go right on there. It's actually wired some electrical tape on there to keep from blowing up batteries. So these ones, obviously, you don't have the option to mount the shock as I do. You have to run the regular damper disc with it. But I guess what I want to say about this was, the full-length upper deck is probably best for any kind of foam tire racing, just because I feel like the car needs front to back stiffness, which it's fairly stiff front to back, but to have the response in here for foam tires, you generally want to have, you don't want to have a split deck like this. This is going to make the car lazy and not able to use the traction it has. Now for rubber tire, this is probably perfect. The other thing to think about, the main thing to think about, I think, with this car, you want this car to twist to make traction, because the plate is it's like a 4mm plate, which is probably overkill, to be honest with you. So you really do want to make the car be able to twist the chassis a little bit in some way when it's going around the track. So generally, what I like to do is only use, any of these chassis, only use the back 2 holes and the front 2 holes on the chassis to connect the upper and lower decks, and then the various posts can be just connected at the bottom. And you can use that little hole in the side to stick a 050 wrench or something in there, and then you can tighten that down, but not put a screw in the top deck to allow the car to flex more. So usually, like with these things, I'll have just 2 posts in just to carry the radio tray. The thing about it is, when there's less traction, it's usually better to run a heavier car. And I think the main difference between these parts versus all the graphite stuff, the main thing to me is that these are heavier. That's the only real difference I can feel. Because I even ran one of these chassis on foam tire and the car did not feel any different. I think it's just the weight of the car. The weight, if you're looking to add weight to your car and you don't want to, especially with the lower deck, you're actually adding a lot of weight to the very absolute bottom of the car. This is the absolute bottom of the center of gravity. If you run this, you're adding weight to the absolute underside of the car, instead of putting lead, which can be higher. This is the steel pivot posts set up in here. It adds weight, but it still is higher than adding weight here. Not that this is a significant amount, but it is more weight. The other thing too is the convenience of being able to run the bullet connectors. Probably would mean you actually want to run this top deck most of the time. But with foam tires on carpet, I tend to like all the graphite stuff because if you have enough traction, especially on a foam tire on carpet, the lighter the car, the faster it goes. Everything the lightest possible, the car will be fastest. But for outdoor racing, obviously the car was designed with lipos, which are much heavier than designed with nickel metal hydride, which is much heavier than the lipos. So for the car to work right, it needs that extra weight. Usually I would wind up, if I need to add weight, generally, here and here, if you can add usually half an ounce on each side easily. I've put weight on the diffuser area. You can put some. It's easy to stick. The squares of lead fit perfectly right here. Which again will kind of calm the car down. The other thing too is you can also add lead. This is the front wing. What I actually like to do is, you can see the channel here that runs in between, and you can actually glue lead in there or like chew goo it in there. I find about half an ounce is about all you can really run before the car starts getting really nose heavy where it won't correct itself. Like you're almost having to turn the wheel the opposite direction to get the car to center up. So usually, if I'm going to run anything, it'll be quarter ounce, half an ounce, 7 grams, 14 grams. That's what that winds up being. And then also, a lot of times you can add lead here for a less dramatic effect. It's same thing. You can easily get half an ounce in here, 14 grams, and that will help to make the car, keep the weight on the nose a little more, steer a little more, but it's not as dramatic as adding it right up front here, like you would with the wing. The wing makes a big time difference. And then, the same thing, like you can add weight behind the servo. It's sort of, at that point, if you're just wanting to, when you're getting more in the middle of the car, you're making the car more, you're adding the weight to the car just to weigh it down. It's more of a neutral effect. It's kind of an overall effect on the car versus the extremes are going to, be a little more biased towards one end or the other. If you stack a bunch of lead here, obviously it's going to try to plant the rear end a little more. But also, the thing I remember too is it's also going to be, while it kind of adds that weight, it's also more of a pendulum effect where the car wants to do this stuff. If you add too much weight back here, the car is going to want to keep, the momentum's going to want to keep pulling the rear of the car around, which can be bad too, because you can almost make it like, a pendulum, and it's going to overpower the car. It's going to overpower the rear tires, swinging back and forth like that. So, you have to. There's moderation in everything, but. Obviously, this steel pivot post eliminates the need for a lot of lead back here. It's probably a good way to start. The other thing too, I noticed sometimes you'll mount your speed control, and when you do that, this side, with especially with all the wires hanging out, is going to be heavier than the receiver side most of the time. It depends. You'd probably have to, put your car on a balance points or something like that. I found I had to add about, to the receiver side, I had to add, I think, if it was 3/4 of an ounce or almost a whole ounce, whatchamacallit, 21 grams or 28 grams on the receiver side, just to keep, did it help? Was it a huge deal? I don't know. I had, it probably wasn't hurting to add the weight at that point. But that's sort of where the advantage of the little lipos come in, is that, or for example, like the Losi is now selling that short battery. It's more of it looks like one of these deals, but it's a 2S battery versus a 1S. This is for a 12 scale car, 1S battery, but they have a 2S battery, very similar in dimension. It's short, and you can, you know, basically put that right here, and then you have all this room for electronics. You can add your speed control and whatnot right in front here. And the advantage of that is everything's inside the car. There's less, you know, stuff stuck out here hanging in the wind. So that, you know, personally, I think that it's helpful to have the stuff in the center of the car. I'd rather have it centered than have it hanging out on one side or the other, you know. Especially with rubber tires, just because it's a little more sensitive to stuff like that. You know, there's a little less traction. But you know, those are sort of the things you can kind of think about and look out for, and see what you think. You know, the car is very weight sensitive. I will say that that's something that definitely should be addressed. And it can be something that can help you or hurt you. You know, so if you're out there and the track has no traction and you're running rubber tires and you kind of feel like, you know, you can't get anything done, start stacking lead on the car. And you know, if you're racing foam tire and you're at a super high traction track and the car's, you know, feels sluggish, get the lead out. Because put it this way, when I very first tried the small type battery, the little mini LiPo type battery, last summer, it was actually on an asphalt track on rubber tires, but it was sprayed down with Coke, you know, like there was no tomorrow, and there was a huge lap time difference. And you could, as soon as I pulled the trigger the first time, I could feel the car just took off like a rocket ship. So if you have that traction, use it. You know, when I tried the same thing at the Tamiya track, which was nowhere near the amount of traction, what I wound up with was not very good, to say the least. So, you know, think about the traction, use it to your advantage, use the weight to your advantage, use the flex to your advantage. You know, you can try the different parts if you have them laying around. I do, because I got a couple different cars and they came with different chassis. So you can try all this stuff out, see what you think, and that is all I have to say for now.